My vision, and I think the vision of others who have been involved in the coalition, has ultimately been to see a reduction of the problems that have occurred associated with an environment that is what we call alcohol rich, right? An environment where college has come to mean alcohol consumption, where those two things become inseparable. We'd like to separate those so that college becomes about achievement, becomes about success, it becomes about community, about citizenship, as opposed to being about this wild time that we romantically remember until we're 45 and we tell our kids and our grandkids about.
There's just a really heavy-duty drinking environment that goes on in a college town like Lincoln. Lots of retailers, lots of advertising, lots of sponsorship by the retail alcohol industry of events of all kinds. And students at the University of Nebraska just swim in that soup of constant images of alcohol and drinking.
The way we started the project is we looked at all of the data that was available to us, both anecdotal data and quantitative data. And we used that to figure out where our significant problems were. Some of those occurred in the residence, some of those occurred in campus, some of those were happening in the retail community. And we developed strategies based that were going to, we felt had some confidence, either based on what we knew in the literature or what our gut told us, that we're going to reduce those problems that were identified. So we worked with a social norms message to let students know that we didn't always drink, that not all their peers drank at the same level that others did. We reviewed all campus policies and adjudication of those policies, because if you have a policy and it's not enforced or students aren't aware of it, those three are critical elements that need to work together. We looked at community policy. We looked at the retail sector. One of the problems that we struggle with is we have approximately 130 licensed establishments within a 1-mile radius of the campus. That creates a very competitive market for the student dollar. We looked at overservice. We looked at age identification. The state of Nebraska had a very antiquated system for checking identification or for driver's license. So we worked with the state legislature to change that. And last but not least, we looked at citizen complaints. What was the community experiencing because of student drinking? And a lot of our strategies then were to increase the quality of life, not only for the permanent residents that lived in the neighborhood, but the students who lived there as well.
One of the phrases that we use quite a lot here in the coalition is all stakeholders are part of the table. So especially if any decision that we're going to make, any policy we're going to create, any work that we're going to do that involves individuals, we want those individuals at the table. We want to ask the question, what will this feel like for your experience? What will this be like for you? And how ultimately can we connect you then to sharing that experience so we can create this in a way that it's a positive experience for you, that it works well. By doing so, resistance is dramatically declined.
Well, I was asked to be involved for a few reasons. One, I am a neighborhood resident, and I care a lot, and I try to stay active in my neighborhood. And also, I was really impressed with the collaboration that the university had with other community organizations and the local police department and the university police and involving students themselves. It was really a collaborative effort that I think tried to get everybody's voice heard.
Well, each of these neighborhoods is served by a neighborhood association. We are active in neighborhood associations. Our officers attend neighborhood association meetings regularly. We also have citizen advisory councils that are in each of those neighborhoods, and we meet with those citizen advisory councils to get advice on a variety of issues, not just the alcohol issues. And finally, these are the neighborhoods where we have targeted and worked special projects trying to reduce the impact of high-risk off-campus drinking parties on those neighborhoods.
The small group meetings that I helped facilitate usually had several owner-occupant neighbors, residents who owned property. There were landlords involved, and usually the local police department, and a student representative and representatives from the university. And the purpose was really to get together in a neutral place to have a discussion about everyone's concerns, to see if there were solutions that could be reached by consensus, and to see that everybody really understood everybody else's point of view.
Whether you're a bar owner, whether you're a student, whether you're a resident, whether you're a faculty member, there are commonalities that everyone sees. We want to be safe. We want to have a good time. We don't want negative consequences. Nobody likes to have urination on their lawn, no matter who you are. No one wants a roommate to come home and throw up on their bed. Nobody wants a living space that is destroyed. And so that's where we start. So we all share some commonality. There's something we're all after. Now, if we were to jump in and start by saying, which solution should we adopt? Which policy should we adopt? Which law should we pass? We'd have bedlam. So we have to start from a place that says, what kind of world do you want to live in? What's comfortable for you? What would make you successful? And suddenly, across very different perspectives, different generations, people say pretty much the same thing. And now we can say, so what policy might get us there? What might help us to accomplish that?
Well, I think the first strategy that we employed that really demonstrated our commitment as a coalition to improving quality of life was the Wild Party Patrol. And this was an initiative that was the brainstorm of Chief Tom Cassidy, who's Chief of Police for the City of Lincoln and also co-chair of the coalition.
You know, when you call the police anywhere in the United States, the day is long gone that someone's writing that down on a legal pad. That's being keystroked into a computer-aided dispatch system, a database that includes the address where the police were dispatched. We're geocoding that, which means we're running through a computerized process that identifies approximately where that incident occurred. We convert it into a graphic that's very similar to what you might see on a weather map, where you have different colors depicting different temperatures. We give that area a color value that symbolizes how intense the concentration of party complaints is in that neighborhood. That's where we focus our efforts when we have our party patrol working, and that's where we focused our efforts to do neighborhood roundtables so we could hear from citizens and stakeholders that live in those neighborhoods.
One of the best solutions that we heard were when you made the connection between people who were living in the neighborhood in a friendly way, in a way that was non-confrontational, and it was not centered around the time where there was a conflict, like in the middle of a wild party.
I think one of the things that we have going is the education of how you need to communicate with the community and create those relationships with your neighbors and with your landlord and the tenant in the off-campus areas, and that's something that needs to continue, the education of how important that is.
Alcohol is no longer a social lubricant. We've got this intense desire of young people to get drunk. Drinking for the sake of getting drunk, drinking as much as I can, as fast as I can, to get as wasted as I can, just isn't something that was very common a generation ago. Now it's quite common, and that's the big difference that I see. We've got to change that social and cultural norm, and I think we do it with an environmental approach.
The term environmental strategies means that we focus, instead of on the individual, on the entire environment that influences the individual. So in other words, I'm trying to look at the things that are helping make an individual decide in what way to act. And those things include what kind of normative behavior the individual sees all the way around them. It also means what kind of consequences am I aware of about engaging in a set of behaviors. It means what messages am I getting from all over the environment that's telling me what I should or shouldn't do.
Well, it's hard for me to understand why universities or communities are afraid to wade into the water. I know what some of the old fears used to be in terms of keeping people from being visible and vocal about this and visionary about this particular strategy. But our experience has been that there's strong support from the citizens of the state, from the citizens of the community, and really that universities anymore, I think parents are expecting them to get a handle on this problem and address it. And we have found that there is no backlash, absolutely no backlash from students, from parents.
There has really been an improvement in the number of loud and out of control parties in my neighborhood in particular. I know a lot of that is an effort on the part of the local police department in collaboration with the university to kind of crack down on the worst of the alcohol offenses.
I think there's been a big reduction, and I think the police department has gotten the message from the residents that maybe something that might have been tolerated 15 years ago isn't going to be tolerated now. And part of our goal has always been to recruit more homeowners in the older targeted neighborhoods, so you have more eyes, more vested interest, more people banging the drum and making a noise. And I think it's all coming together very well.
I think the skills that you need to do this work include organizing primarily, which means being able to listen, being able to facilitate and translate for individuals, being able to recognize power structures, being able to bring people of opposite positions together and to work together. So lots of community organizing is, I think, the #1 skill. Much more so than even our knowledge about alcohol or issues surrounding alcohol. We really need to know how to bring a community together. Second skill that's probably most important is communication. The ability to communicate clearly a set of messages and translate those messages to different audiences so that the audiences themselves are part of the message. We make a terrible mistake when we assume that because I say it, and even because I say it well, everyone gets it. And so instead, we have to have the skill of translation. We have to ask the question much more often, how do you hear it, rather than how should I say it?
We've brought people together who don't normally communicate together, and we've seen what great things can happen when you capitalize on the synergistic effect of facilitating those dialogues. They're creative, they're innovative, they're committed, and that speaks to every constituent that sits at our table.
The #1 mistake all of us have the potential to make, including us, and have made in the past, is accelerating an agenda without all the stakeholders. The #1 mistake we can make is saying, I know what's best for someone else.
When you start getting the faculty at the university involved and the administration at the university involved, state legislators involved, the city council involved, the medical society involved, you have much, much more power, frankly, because you're much more inclusive. When you involve neighborhoods and neighborhood associations, you also increase the influence and the power that you have to sway public opinion, to sway the opinion of elected officials. I think getting everyone under the same tent is critical, and it's made a world of difference in our ability to get things done here in our community.
Give yourself time, bring people together, and certainly don't let a lack of resources stop you, because it doesn't cost a dime to sit and have coffee and begin the first conversation.